Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today I'll be showing you how to make a cold shoulder, cable stitch, bell sleeve sweater, which is a mouthful to say but breathtaking to wear. It's modern, has the lovely cable texture that we love, and there's the best cable that makes feeling like an anime princess a breeze. Speaking of, if you love looking like a princess, a boss, fairy, or anything in between, we've got you covered. We have hundreds of modern crochet patterns with many more on the way, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado, for this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 625 grams of yarn, and that's 850 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5 and 6.5 millimeter hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order. And enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us who is your favorite princess from anime. Mine would have to be Vivi from my favorite anime, One Piece. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 7 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, and double treble crochet. This tutorial is for size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're all going to grab our 5 millimeter hook, and we're going to get started with our cable stitch detail. So no matter what size we're making, we're all going to start by making a chain 9. Now that we have our chain 9, our first row is going to be a half double crochet row. So block off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain. From here, we're going to yarn over, and then into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch. So insert your hook, pull through. When we have those 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3. Let's do one more. Yarn over, into that following chain, pull through all 3. Continue putting 1 half double crochet into every chain. Our first half double crochet row is finished. Our row 2 is also going to be a half double crochet row. So chain 2, still doesn't count as a stitch. Flip our work, and put 1 half double crochet into every chain for a total of 9 half double crochets again. Our row 2 is finished, which was a half double crochet row. Now we're going to get started on our first cable stitch row, or our row 3, so chain 2 and flip our work. For every cable stitch row, we are always going to start and end our cable stitch detail with a front post treble crochet. So yarn over twice. Every cable stitch detail is going to be worked into our previous odd number row. Since we're working on row 3, we're going to be inserting our hook into row 1. So find that first half double crochet from row 1, not counting that chain 2. We're going to bring our hook down and bring our hook underneath the body of that half double crochet and through the other side. From here, yarn over and pull through, and continue to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the next 2, yarn over, pull through the following 2. Our front post treble crochet is all finished up. Getting started on our cable stitch detail, they're going to be worked in sets of 2. So starting with the yarn over of 3, preparing for a front post double treble crochet. So there's 1, there's 2, There's 3. We're going to skip the following 2 half double crochets into our row 1, and then into the following 2 stitches after that, 1 front post double treble crochet into each of those. So bring our hook down. We're going to skip 1, skip 2. Underneath that following half double crochet, insert your hook underneath, pull through, yarn over, and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook again. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. There's our first front post double treble crochet. We have 1 more left to do into that following stitch. Yarn over 3 times, into that next stitch, insert your hook, and through the other side. Yarn over, pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Our first 2 front post double treble crochets are finished. Now into those 2 skip stitches, we're going to be putting 1 front post double treble crochet into each of those as well. So just like before, yarn over 3 times. Finding that first skip stitch, insert your hook underneath that stitch, through the other side, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and we have 1 more skip stitch to work into. So yarn over 3 times again. Bring our hook down underneath that half double, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Right after our crossover, we're going to be doing a set of front post treble crochets into the following 2 stitches. So to do a treble crochet, yarn over twice, into that following stitch, insert, pull through 2, 2, 2, into that following stitch, insert, pull through 2, 2, and 2. Now from here, our cable stitch detail is finished, and like I said, we need to close this row off with a front post treble crochet. So we should have 2 stitches left. Prepare for a front post treble crochet by yarning over twice. Into that second to last stitch, insert your hook underneath, pull through 2, 2, 2, and then just to secure this row down, we're going to close it off with a half double crochet. So yarn over, insert your hook into the last stitch from our previous row, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. Now our row 3 is all finished. Every even number row is going to be a half double crochet row. So from here, just chain 2, flip your work, and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, and we should have a total of 9 half double crochets again. We're back, and we should have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows finished. Now we're going to get started on our row 5, or our second cable stitch row, so chain 2, and flip our work. Like I said in one of our previous clips, every cable stitch row is going to be worked into our previous odd number stitch row. So since we're working on row 5, all of our stitches are going to be worked into row 3. So as a refresher, our first stitch for our cable stitch row is always going to be a front post treble crochet. So yarn over twice, find the front post treble crochet from our previous cable stitch row, bring your hook underneath the body of that stitch and through the other side. Yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 2 loops left on our hook. And then getting started on our cable stitch detail, we're going to be putting 1 front post treble crochet into each of the following 2 stitches. So yarn over twice, into that next stitch, insert, pull through 2, 2, 2, and then into that following stitch as well. Bring your hook underneath, through the other side, pull through 2, 2, and 2. From here, we're going to skip the following 2 stitches, and then into the 2 stitches right after that, a front post double treble crochet into each of those. Skip 1, skip 2. Into that following stitch, insert, pull through, yarn over, and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. And then another front post double treble into the following stitch. Pull through 2, 2, 2, and 2. To do our crossover for row 5, we're going to do a front post double treble crochet into the 2 stitches that we skipped over, but working into that window that we just made. So starting over with a yarn over of 3, hang on to your work yarn because it can very easily fall off, and what we're going to do is pull our hook down towards us, finding our 2 skip stitches through that window. So pull down, and this is that window. This is my first skip stitch, this is my second. Inserting your hook into that first skip stitch, we're going to yarn over, pull through, and then per usual yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. There's our first crossover. We have 1 more stitch left. Yarn over 3 times again, hang on to your working yarn and bring your hook down. Find that last skip stitch, bring your hook underneath and through the other side, pull through, and then yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. And that is our cable stitch detail. Now we're going to close this row off with a front post treble and a half double. So yarn over twice. Into the last front post treble crochet from our previous cable row, insert, through the other side, pull through 2, 2, 2, and then half double into the last stitch from our previous row. Row 5 is finished. Like I said, all of our even number rows is going to be a half double crochet row, so chain 2, flip our work, and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Altogether, we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 rows. From here, it's going to be a repeat of rows 3 through 6 until we get the length of the top that we'd like. I'm just going to get started on our row 7, which is going to be a repeat of row 3, just as a refresher. So right after our 6th row, chain 2 and flip our work. Now every cable stitch row is going to start with a front post treble crochet. So yarn over twice, into the first stitch from our previous cable row, do our front post treble, and then to get started on our row 7, which is a repeat of row 3, yarn over 3 times, skip the first 2 stitches, and then into that following stitch, our first front post double treble crochet, and then into that following stitch, our next front post double treble crochet, and then that is it. Continue to repeat rows 3 through 6 until we get the length of the top that we want, so long or short, whatever you prefer. Making sure that we place this first row right where the base of our neck is, and then continuing on with these rows until we get the length that we want, keeping in mind that we will have a bottom band as well. I want mine to be slightly cropped, so I'm going to stop mine right about where my belly button is, and I'll meet you back right after a cable stitch row. My cable stitch detail is finished. I have a total of 35 rows and this length is 12 inches or 30 centimeters. Now we can get started on our side panel. Our last row should be a cable stitch row. From here we will chain 1 and then single crochet along the edge of our cable stitch detail. We're going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. So finding that first side row that we have should be the last half double crochet from our previous cable stitch row. Insert your hook in through that top loop with just 1 single crochet. Our following side row should be this side half double crochet row right here. If you turn it over, it's going to be our solid half double crochet row because that was an even number row. So find that top loop and insert your hook in through there with 1 and then into that same top loop with a second single crochet. Continue to do this, making our way all the way down. Let's do this again. Find our following side row, insert your hook in through that top loop with 1 single. Into that following side row, insert your hook in through there with 2 singles. So there's 1, and then there's 2. Continue this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into, then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Our single crochet row is finished. When I didn't have any more side rows left, I did a chain up of 1 and cut. Now from here, we're going to be inserting our hook into that chain space that we made when we started off our single crochet row, and then we're going to half double crochet all the way down. Now, for those of you that are wondering why we didn't just chain 2, flip our work, and then do our row of half double crochets, we're doing it this way so that we can show the front of our single crochets so it looks nice and clean, but the ribbing that we're about to do isn't reversible, so the half double crochet rows need to show the front as well. Once when our hook is in through that corner stitch, Insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and then do a chain 2. We're going to be putting 1 half double crochet into every stitch. So starting with the yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. Continue to put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Our half double crochet row is finished. Our following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row for the ribbing. So right after our last half double, chain 1, flip our work. Find the last stitch from our previous row, insert only into that back loop, and then gently yarn over, pull through both loops on our hook. That's our first back loop slip stitch. Let's do another. Into that following stitch, insert into that back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us, pull through everything. Continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and a quick tip, make sure that we're not tugging too tightly on our slip stitches, otherwise the following row can be too tight to work into. Our back loop slip stitch row is finished. Now it's going to be a back loop half double crochet row. Chain 2 and flip our work. Just to do the first one, we're going to yarn over, find the last stitch from our previous row, insert into that back loop, and half double crochet per usual. From here, continue to put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. We are going to continue to repeat our back loop slip stitch and back loop half double crochet row with no increases and no decreases until this portion that we have can stretch, making sure that we're placing the cable at mid-chest over to the corner of our underarm. I will meet you back right after a back loop slip stitch row. My side panel is all finished. I have a total of 11 rows and my width is 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters, and my total width is 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. From here, we're going to work on our underarm. So placing this first row right at the base of our neck, we're going to be inserting our stitch marker right where our underarm starts. I've inserted my stitch marker into the 13th stitch from the top, that's opposite from our working yarn, and that's just about 3 inches or 8 centimeters. Now, our last row should have been a back loop slip stitch row, so put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving 2 stitches right before our stitch marker. We've put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving 2 stitches right before our stitch marker. Now we're going to do a decrease of 2 back loop half double crochets. Yarn over, insert your hook into that second to last back loop, pull through, into that last back loop, pull through, yarn over, and pull through all 4 of those loops. That is our decrease of 2 back loop half doubles. From here, we're going to do the following row in our row sequence, so back loop slip stitch row. So chain 1, flip our work, and just put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 2, flip our work, put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 2 to decrease together once more. Our back loop slip stitch and our back loop half double crochet row are nearly finished. I left the last 2 stitches into my back loop half double crochet row, and now we're going to decrease together. So starting with the yarn over, insert your hook into that second to last back loop, pull through, also insert your hook into that last back loop, pull through. Once we have those 4 loops, just yarn over, pull through all 4, and then that's it. Continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until this portion that we have can stretch over to mid underarm, making sure that we end on a half double crochet row. Right after that last row, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. The first side of my front panel is all finished. Counting from my first single crochet row, I now have a total of 18 rows, and my width is 4.5 inches or 11 centimeters, or my total width is 7 inches or 18 centimeters. From here, we're going to repeat everything we did here on the other side, but we're going to need to insert our hook into a different place because, like I said, the ribbing isn't reversible. Now we're going to be placing our same 5mm hook into the top corner stitch of our cable stitch detail, and that top corner stitch is going to be along the top shoulder portion. So insert your hook in through there, insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now just like how we did this other side, we're going to start with a single crochet row alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, do a chain up of 1 and cut after that single crochet row, and then we're going to reinsert our hook into this top corner stitch. Then we're going to be alternating between a back loop half double and back loop slip stitch row for the same amount of rows as this portion of our front panel. Right after our back loop slip stitch row, we will end along the top, so just do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. My 11 rows for the right side of my side panel is all finished. After that last row should have been a back loop slip stitch row, I did a chain up of 1 and cut, and now we're going to do our underarm. What we're going to need to do is insert our stitch marker into the same amount of stitches that we insert our stitch marker from the other side. If you have my numbers, I inserted my stitch marker into the 13th stitch along this side. So counting from the top, I did the same thing. Now we're going to do our underarm together. Getting started on this underarm, we're going to be inserting our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our stitch marker, working our way down. And we're going to insert our hook into that back loop. Insert your yarn onto your hook. Pull through, and just for this row, we're going to start it with a chain 2, and that does not count as a stitch. Since we're along the top, we're going to start with a decrease of 2 back loop half double crochets. So yarn over, and start by inserting your hook into that same stitch that our chain 2 is in. Yarn over, pull through, and then into that following stitch's back loop as well. Insert, and pull through. When we have those 4 loops, yarn over, pull through all 4. That is our decrease. From here, continue to put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. I'll meet you back to get started on the following half double crochet row. Our first underarm back loop half double crochet row is finished. We have also finished our back loop slip stitch row, and we're going to get started on our following back loop half double crochet together. So chain 2 and flip your work. Starting this row with a decrease of 2 back loop half doubles, yarn over, find that first stitch, insert into that back loop, pull through, into that following stitch's back loop, pull through all 4, and continue to put 1 back loop half double into every stitch. From here, continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we have the same amount of underarm rows as the other side of our front panel. Once we do a chain up of 1 and cut. The entirety of my front panel is finished. My total width is 11 inches or 28 centimeters. Now we can get started on the back panel. So we're all going to start by making a chain for the same amount of stitches that we have for our last underarm row. If you guys have my numbers, I have a total of 35 stitches. So I'm now going to start by making a chain of 35. Now that we have our chain, we are going to block off that last chain and do a half double crochet row. So chain 2, yarn over, insert your hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook with a half double, and put 1 half double crochet into every chain, leaving the last one. We've put 1 half double crochet into every chain. Into that last one, we're going to do an increase of 2 half doubles. Insert your hook into that last chain with our first half double, and then into that same last chain with our second half double. And now we're going to repeat the row sequence as the front panel. So chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of this row, chain 2, flip our work, put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one so we can increase together again. Now that we put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, into that last stitch, we're going to do another increase of 2. So yarn over, insert into that last back loop with 1 half double, and then with the second half double. Continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we have the same amount of rows as our underarm as the front panel. If you have my numbers, I will be doing a total of 7 rows, and we should end right after back loop half double crochet row. I now have the same amount of underarm rows as my front panel. From here, we're going to make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we skipped when we started our underarm. So if you have my numbers, I skipped a total of 13 stitches. So from here, I'm going to make a chain of 13. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do the following row in our row sequence, which is a slip stitch row. So chain 1, flip our work, and then into that chain that we blocked off with a second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch, and put 1 slip stitch into every chain. We've put 1 slip stitch into every chain, and now we're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Twist your work if you need to. Find that first stitch, insert in through that back loop with a back loop slip stitch, and continue to put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of this row, chain 2, flip our work, and put one back loop half double crochet into every stitch, and then repeat. So we aren't going to be doing any increases or decreases for this portion of our back panel. We're going to continue on with these rows for the same amount of rows that we have from our first neckline row within the front panel, working our way all the way across to our last neckline row within the front panel. And we aren't going to be adding any extra rows for our cable stitch detail as well. So if you guys have my numbers, I have a total of 11 rows here and 11 rows here. And after we have that amount of rows, we're going to add one more to end on a slip stitch row along the bottom. So I have just finished up the back portion of my back panel. Next thing we're going to do is our underarm. I already have mine done, but this underarm is actually going to be done the same way that the first underarm was done, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. So start by inserting your stitch marker into the same amount of stitches that we skipped when we started our underarm for the front panel. If you have my numbers, I skipped a total of 13 stitches, so I inserted my stitch marker into the 13th. And then I did my back loop half double crochet row with a decrease of 2 into the 2 stitches right before my stitch marker stitch. Then a back loop slip stitch row, and then repeat. We're going to continue to repeat those 2 rows until we have the same amount of underarm rows as our front panel, then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now that our front and back panels all finished up, the next thing we're going to do is seam it together. So first things first, we're going to need to make sure that our work is flipped right side out and right side up, meaning the cable stitch detail that we have is faced up towards us, and the ribbing detail that we have for the back panel is faced away from us. Next, we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. This seam is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam to make it look like another slip stitch row. So find that first available stitch into the front panel and insert only in through that front loop. Find that next available stitch into the back panel, insert only in through that back loop, yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. There's our first, let's do the next one. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert in through that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert in through that back loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops, and then that's it. Continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. Now that everything is seamed up, we're ready to get started on the prep for our neckline. So first things first, make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, and we're going to insert our hook into the right corner stitch of the back panel. From here, we are going to insert our yarn onto our hook and pull through. And now we're going to make a chain that can reach up and over our shoulder to reach the front panel's corner stitch to get started on our neckline. So I've already measured mine out. I need a total of 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain 13. Now that we have our chain, we're going to connect it into the corner stitch of the front panel. Go ahead and insert your hook with a single crochet. And from here, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side row, and then also 1 single crochet into every stitch along the top of our cable stitch detail as well. So our first single crochet was worked into that corner stitch, which is for that side slip stitch row. Our following row is a side half double, so insert your hook in through that top loop with 1 single crochet. Let's do this again. Into that next side slip stitch row, find that top loop, insert with a single, and then into that following side row, which is our side half double, insert with a single. Continue to put 1 single crochet into every side row, 1 single crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at this corner. Now that we have single crocheted across our front panel, we're now going to make the same chain that we made on this side and then single crochet it into the corner stitch of the back panel. So I'm going to make a chain of 13 again. Single crochet it into the corner stitch of the back panel. And then continue to put 1 single crochet into every side row. And as a quick tip, this first single crochet and chain row that we just did is going to be as wide as this neck hole can be. So try this on, making sure that it can fit around your head, and if it doesn't, go ahead and add a few more chains. If it does, then you are good to go. We've just single crocheted across the top of our back, and now we're going to be doing 1 single crochet row just to clean this up. So slip stitch into that chain space, make a chain 1, and then making sure that we're working in the same direction we were just working into, put 1 single crochet into every chain and stitch, making our way all the way around. Slip stitch into that chain space and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. So now that our neckline's finished, the next thing we're going to do is our sleeve. So we're first going to need to single crochet across the entirety of our armhole. So making sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning all of the ribbing that we have is faced outwards. We're going to insert our hook into that last side seam stitch. Insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and then do a chain up of 1 to secure. And now working our way up our underarm, we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into every side half double, and then 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row. So let's all start by finding our first side half double crochet row. Mine's right here. I'm going to find that top loop, insert my hook in through there, starting with 1 single crochet. And if you guys are like me, you have some tail ends, go ahead and just place that over your hook, and then we're going to single crochet over it. There's our first single crochet, and as you guys can see, our tail ends are in the middle of that single crochet so that we don't need to weave them in later. Let's do the next one. We have to put 1 more single crochet into that same side half double, so find that same top loop, insert your hook into there with a second single crochet. Into that side slip stitch row, insert your hook into that top loop with just 1 single crochet. Let's do one more set. Our following side half double crochet row is this one. Find that top loop, insert with 1, and then insert into that same top loop with a second single crochet. And continue to do this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into. I don't have any more underarm rows to work into, so into that last stitch, we're going to insert our stitch marker. And then from here, we're going to be putting one single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way up and over. When we're ready to work into our underarm portion right over here, I'll meet you back again. I've just single crocheted my way all the way around, and now I need to single crochet down my underarm. And into that side row, that first single crochet that we're going to do, insert your stitch marker into there. So into that top loop, which should be a side half double, put 1 single crochet, and then insert your stitch marker into there. And then from here, continue to put 2 single crochet into every side half double, 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, and then slip stitch into that chain space, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now that that single crochet row is finished, we're now going to start working on our shoulder band. So first things first, make sure that our work is flipped right side out again, and then we're going to be inserting our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our stitch marker stitch that's working up towards our shoulder. Go ahead and insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and then do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now the first row is going to be a single crochet row for the width that we'd like for our shoulder band to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 1 inch or 2 centimeters, so I'm going to start by doing 4 single crochets, starting with my first single crochet being worked into that same stitch that our chain 1 is in. So I'm going to insert into there with my first single crochet, and then making sure that we're working our way up towards the shoulder, I'm going to be putting 3 more single crochets for a total of 4. Now that I have the width of my shoulder band, we're just going to be doing back loop slip stitch rows until it can reach the other panel that we have. So just chain 1 and flip our work. And just to do this slip stitch row, we're going to find that last stitch from our previous row, insert your hook into that back loop, yarn over, pull through everything, into that following back loop, insert, pull through everything, and continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, and then repeat. We're going to continue to repeat our back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases until this portion can stretch over to the other panel that we have, and we must end right after an even number row so that we can seam it a lot easier. I'm back with my shoulder band. I have a total of 28 rows, and this length is just about 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. From here, we're going to seam it to the other panel that we have. So since we all should have ended right after an even number row, our hook should be along the bottom, nearest to our stitch marker stitch. From here, we're going to be inserting our hook into that same stitch that we inserted our hook into on the other side. So into the stitch right next to our stitch marker stitch that's working up towards our shoulder. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull through everything, and this is going to be the same seam as our side, so let's get this started. Insert your hook into that first available stitch into the front panel, in through that front loop, and then into that next available stitch into the back panel, and through that back loop. Yarn over and pull through everything, and then that's it. Continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Right before we get started with the length of our sleeve, we're going to need to single crochet across the bottom of our shoulder band so that it's easier to connect our sleeve. So let's all start by making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, and flipped upside down so that we can single crochet across the bottom. So we're all going to start by inserting our hook into that same stitch that our shoulder seam is worked out of. So taking a look at our stitch marker stitch, we're going to find that next stitch that's working our way up towards our shoulder. It is going to be an occupied stitch. Insert your hook in through there. Insert your yarn onto your hook. Pull through, and now we're going to put 1 single crochet into every side row. So find that first side row. This is mine right here. I'm going to insert my hook with 1 single crochet. Let's do the next one. This is my following side row. Insert your hook in through that top loop with another single crochet. And then that's it. Continue to do this, making our way all the way down. Now that we have single crocheted across the bottom of our shoulder band, we're now going to need to slip stitch it into that same occupied stitch, so that first stitch that we have that's right next to our stitch marker stitch, working our way up towards our shoulder. So our shoulder band should be worked into there. Just insert your hook in through there, yarn over, pull through everything, do a chain up of 1 and cut. So inserting our hook into the stitch that's nearest to our side seam, we're going to do a half double crochet row, making sure that we're working clockwise or to the left. So make sure that your work is flipped right side out, right side up. Insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and then do a chain 2. That doesn't count as a stitch, we just want the height. And we're going to be putting 1 half double crochet into every stitch until we reach our stitch marker. Now that we put 1 half double crochet into every stitch until we reached our stitch marker stitch, we can take this out for now. And then we're going to do a decrease into that last stitch and then also into the first stitch that's worked into the shoulder band. So yarn over, insert your hook into that last stitch, pull through, and then into that first stitch where our shoulder band is, and pull through. Once we have all 4 of those loops, yarn over and pull through all 4. From here, we're going to be putting 1 half double crochet into every stitch, working our way across until we are 1 stitch right before our stitch marker stitch right over here. Now that we have made our way all the way down, we have our last stitch left. A really quick tip, it may look like we have 2 stitches left, but that last stitch is typically the slip stitch that we have worked into that stitch marker stitch, so just make sure that you're keeping track of the amount of stitches that you have. But what we're going to do is yarn over, insert your hook into that last stitch, pull through, and then into the stitch marker stitch within the body. So into that stitch as well, I'm going to take out my stitch marker, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, and continue to put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Our first half double crochet row is nearly finished. We now need to close the row off. How we're going to close off every half double crochet row is we're going to start by counting up the 2 chains that we made when we started off this row, and then slip stitch into that second chain. And now our row 1 is all finished up. Our following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases, so all we're going to do is chain 1 and flip our work, making sure that we're flipping our work because we want the same ribbing as the body, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch and then slip stitch into that chain space. Our second sleeve row is all finished up, and now we're just going to decrease into the beginning and into the end of every half double crochet row until this becomes nice and snug on us. So let's do that together. After we slip stitch into that chain space, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and we're going to start with a decrease of 2 back loop half double crochets. So starting with yarn over, insert your hook into the last stitch from our previous row, pull through, into that following back loop, pull through all 4, and put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 2 stitches so we can decrease together once more. So we just put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 2, so let's do another decrease. Yarn over, into that second to last back loop, pull through, into that last back loop, pull through all 4, and then close this row off with a slip stitch into that second chain. From here, chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until this portion becomes nice and snug around our arm, and I'll meet you back right after back loop slip stitch row. The first half of my sleeve is finished. I have a total of 18 rows, and that length is just about 5 inches or 13 centimeters. From here, I'm going to continue on with my back loop half double and back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases until this reaches about where our elbow is. So I'm just going to do the half double crochet row with you guys. We're going to slip stitch into that chain space since we just finished up our slip stitch row. Chain 2, flip our work, and this is going to be fairly easy. Just yarn over and put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. At the end of the row, slip stitch into that second chain. Chain 1, flip our work, and then do a back loop slip stitch row, also with no increases and no decreases. I'll meet you back once when this length reaches our elbow right after back loop slip stitch row. The length of my sleeve is now all finished. I now have a total of 28 rows, and this length is 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters. And now we're going to get started on the bell. Our last row should have been a back loop slip stitch row. Now our back loop half double crochet rows is going to have an increase into them. We're going to insert our 6.5 millimeter hook, do a chain 3, and then flip your work. From here, we're going to be doing an increase of 3 back loop double crochets into the first and then into the last stitch that we have into every half double crochet row. So getting that started, insert your hook into that first back loop with 1 double crochet. Let's do the next one into that same back loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, into that same back loop with 3 double crochets. From here, put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one. We've put 1 half double crochet into every back loop, leaving that last one, and now we're going to do another increase of 3 double crochets into that last back loop. Yarn over, inserting your hook into that last stitch's back loop with your first double crochet, into that same back loop with your second, and then once more with your third. And now that we have 3 double crochets, we're going to slip stitch into that third chain that we made when we started off this row. And now this row is all closed off. Our following row is going to be back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases. So per usual, chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And then that's basically it. We're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we get the final length that we'd like for our bell sleeve to be. I'll meet you back right after a back loop half double crochet row and a chain up of 1 and cut. The length of my sleeve is all finished. I have a total of 63 rows, and my length is 20 inches or 51 centimeters. Right after my last half double crochet row, I did do a chain up of 1 and cut. When we have this side finished up, we're going to repeat everything on the other side. Now that both of our sleeves are finished, we can get started on the bottom band. So first things first, make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, and then we're going to insert our 5 millimeter hook into any one of the side rows along the bottom. Insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now we're going to put 1 single crochet into every side row. So find our first side row, mine is this half double crochet. In through that top loop, insert your hook with just 1 single crochet. Our following side row is the side slip stitch row. Insert your hook with just 1 single crochet again. That's it. Continue to put 1 single crochet into every side row. Once you reach the bottom of the cable stitch detail, just put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Slip stitch into that chain space when we don't have any more side rows left to work into. Our single crochet row is finished. We've slip stitched into that chain space. Now make a chain the length that we'd like for our bottom band to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 1 inch or 2 centimeters, so I'm going to make a chain of 5. Now that we have our chain, block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch. Insert your hook, yarn over, gently pull through both of those loops. Continue to put 1 slip stitch into every chain. We've put 1 slip stitch into every chain. Now we're going to slip stitch it into the stitch into the base. Find that next available stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through everything. This doesn't count as a stitch, we're just connecting it into the base. To work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, Flip our work, and now put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Find that last stitch from our previous row, insert into that back loop, gently pull through everything, and continue to the end of the row. At the end of the row, chain one, flip our work, put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, and then I will meet you back to connect it into the base. Our row 3 is nearly finished. Find that next stitch into the base, insert your hook in through there with a slip stitch to finish off our row 3. Then, as a reminder, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, flip your work, and then put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch again. Continue to repeat these 2 rows with no increases and no decreases till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, I will meet you back. We've made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches to work into, so now we're going to seam it together. And this is going to be another outside loop slip stitch seam. So inserting your hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, we're going to yarn over, pull through everything. Since we already know how to do this, let's do the first one together. Find that first stitch into the front panel, insert in through that front loop, find the next stitch into the back panel, insert in through that back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything on our hook. Continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Our bottom band is finished up. Next thing we're going to work on is the collar, but now we're going to need to separate it in half. Making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, we're going to eyeball where our middle stitch is within the front panel. Now this may be a little bit different for everyone. I had a total of 80 stitches making my way all the way around when we first did our neckline, so I'm going to have 2 middle stitches within the front and the back. If you had an odd number of stitches, you will just have 1 middle stitch within the front and the back. So all I did was find my 2 middle stitches within my cable, trace that up, and then inserted my 2 stitch markers into those 2 middle stitches. And since I had 80, I cut that in half, counted out 40 on both sides, and inserted my stitch markers into the halfway points within the back. If you just have 1, you're just going to find that middle stitch, trace that one up, insert your stitch marker, and then find the middle point within the back, and then insert your following stitch marker. Just make sure that we have the same amount of stitches on both sides of our stitch marker stitches. From here, what we're going to do from here is we're all going to grab our 5mm hook and then insert our hook into our stitch marker stitch. I've inserted mine into the left, but if you have just 1 middle stitch, insert yours into your 1 middle stitch. From this point forward, it's going to be the same for everyone, so we are going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and we're all going to start by making a chain of 1. That is going to count as a stitch, and then we're going to make a second chain, and that second chain is going to count as our turning chain, so altogether we're going to have 2 chains. From here, we're going to slip stitch into the second chain from our hook. So we're going to skip 1, into that second chain, yarn over, pull through everything, and now we need to connect it into the base. So similarly to how we did the bottom band, find that next stitch into the base, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through everything. That slip stitch into the base does not count as a stitch, that's just to connect it into the base. And then we need to work our way up to the following row, so find that next stitch into the base, insert with another slip stitch, and flip our work. Now that our work is flipped, we should all have just 1 stitch to work into, so find that 1 stitch, insert in through that back loop, yarn over, pull through everything. At the end of every odd number row, we're going to do a chain 2. That first chain is going to count as a stitch because this is going to need to increase, and that second chain is going to be our turning chain. Once we have those 2 chains, flip our work. Into that second chain from our hook, insert with a back loop slip stitch. So find that back loop, yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. And we should have just 1 stitch left, so insert into that back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything. Like I said, that is our increase row, and we're going to need to connect it into the base. So into that following stitch into the base, insert, pull through, and then into that following stitch into the base, insert, pull through just to work our way up to the following row. And now we're going to repeat, so let's do this again. Flip our work, find the last stitch from our previous row, which we should have 1, 2 stitches, insert your hook into that last back loop, yarn over, pull through. We should have 1 stitch left, so insert into there as well. Pull through everything. And now that we're at the end of an odd number row, we're going to chain 2. So there's 1, there's 2, and flip our work. Inserting our hook into that second chain from our hook's back loop. Insert your hook into there. Yarn over, pull through, and we should have 2 stitches. So into that next back loop, pull through, and then into that last back loop, and pull through. And that's basically it. To connect it into the base, insert into that following stitch into the base, and then work our way up to the following row, insert into that next stitch into the base. Flip our work and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, doing a chain 2 at the end of the row. From here, continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we get the height that we'd like for our collar to be. And then I will meet you guys back right along the base once we have that height so I can tell you guys where we're going to do next. I am back and I now have a total of 19 rows. My height that I have here is just about 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters. And this is the height that I want. So from here, I'm just going to continue to do my back loop slip stitch rows with no increases and no decreases. So the same way that we did the bottom band until I reach my stitch markers along the back. Once when I've gotten my first side done, I am going to do a chain up of 1 and cut. And then I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. But when I finish up the second side, I'm not going to do a chain up of 1 and cut so that we can seam everything together. Now that both of our collars are all finished up, we don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now let's seam it together. We are first going to make sure that our work is slipped right side out and right side up. Next, we're going to insert our hook into that front panel's front loop, and then into that back panel's back loop within that first available stitch, yarn over, pull through everything. So this is the same seam that we did for the sides. Continue to do our outside loop slip stitch seam, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now that our collar is seamed, we are all done. Last thing we're going to have to do is weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. All of those links are down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!